Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mbadiuni mbali dame mbi wala MFI Enterprises ti ni mubidi kilati me yalon ko abe lorin dame wala bako te sate o konoti opposite Mboyo Mini Stadium. Ni mubidi kilati me yalon ko ka wafiru kale domori fonna mel yalon ko wala mu jabolti mayne sol manoli chikinoli kata tuloli. Mbidi ko de e lafta fenken do la me yalon ko wala mu tulodi akende mana betema ibori sign yefuta MFI Enterprise me yalon ko abe lorin dame olom bako te sate konoti opposite Mboyo field ni futa daji isi fenkendol soto me anko tulu kendo lamba mani kendo jaba kendo anim pompitero mi yalon ko eneneten ni misala mbadion ali bor sang ali futa MFI Enterprise na ali futa daji la doku lal beti mino be diaral fi isi fenkendo wal falma anin tilin konol anin lan len le akon ala baraka.
Watching Kwanku TV, and we are on independent discussion. My guest today is Mr. Bakewa Fofana, a historian and educationist. Mr. Fofana, that was explained. Now, going forward, of course, we said the trade union activities sponsored the formation of political parties. In fact, before formation of political parties, for the first time, we have the elective principles, where the colony of Batos was for the first time allowed to choose a representative, and EF Simol, of course, become the first elected to represent Batos as a colony. Then the protectorate was excluded. Then, of course, we have a constitutional reform in 1951. And, of course, by this one, like you already mentioned, we have our first political party. Going forward, of course, before 54 elections, we have at least 3 or so political parties contesting and the like. Then we went from 54 now, that was a little bit, towards 1959 or 1960, the trajectory changed, or the political dynamic was about to take a phase. The majority of the population who live outside the colony, that's the province, we are not represented. And I want to believe he mentioned about this, the like of Senjale Bojang, who was from the provinces, and other people that perhaps he might mention. Those people who are living in Batos, working, and of course, coming from places that we are not represented. And they understand that these are places where our fathers are governing. But yet still, they are only governing based on instructions given to them by the colonial masters, and of course have to act on those or get removed. And these people now, we are directly working with the colonial master, colonial government, have the education, understand governance and the like. They are seen to be electorate. So how do you think, towards the 1959, how do you think the activities of the people of the provinces who were living in Batos as a colony lead to the formation of PPP?
Thank you very much, Omar. If you look at the colony, let's look at the geography. It has come up to the present-day Abuko, where it's called Albert Town during the colonial era. Then you go up to Sukuta N, and then it kind of curve going towards Bakau and then to Banjul. So beyond Abuko, going up to the last village of the Gambia is all seen as a protectorate. So these are some of the things sometimes when you don't make it clear, still some, if you look at even school level, you can see some students tend to confuse some of these things. So you can see the whole of, let's assume that present day, the whole province is called the protectorate. All right. So now, if you look at those protectorate men that were in Banjul, like Pasanjali and others, they've realized that our people are excluded from this. And that is why, even if you look at the naming of the PPP, has that connotation of protectorate, so that to win the hearts of those that are in the provinces, present day provinces. So, and this helped because if you go to somebody and said, anyway, this belongs to all of us, but for us, we are exempted from taking part. So can we also come together and then fight for our share? It sounds, it rings a bell. And that is why when Pasanjali, Kebawasa, Ture, Babukar Fofana, and others, when they started mobilizing themselves, and it paid dividends, and they were able to go as far as the upper regions. I made understand that they came to our village, Karantaba. I was told that they came to Karantaba and they found people at the Bantaba, and when they explained themselves, they were welcome. And then host of other bantabas were visited during that time. So the information was very simple. Those of us from the rural areas, we are not part of this. And then they join in.
Yes, indeed. Of course, that was very important, bringing it because you have to understand that in the 1960 election, it was a landmark since it was the first time the protectorate was going to be represented. And of course, towards that end, a new party was needed, a party that was not going to be limited only to the colony, but a party that will cut across the country. And in so doing, of course, you need people who are from different part of the colony who will come together to form that party. So the formation of the PPP is significant to Gambians' independence. And perhaps before I pose the question on that, just to remember the word of Jawara, the former president, in his book, The Kaiwa, he says, they knew that the first time they entered the polls or they formed the PPP, the message was clear. Not reforms, but self-rule. And like you did mention, they make a tour around the country. Perhaps in Pajombo and Wasa, Farmer Wasa, of course, in their tour, I think they were so eloquent that Pajombo was gifted away by one of the chiefs because of his eloquence and how convincing he was to the chiefs. So, how will you align the formation of the PPP with Gambia attainment of independence or self-rule in 1963 and of course later on independent in 1965?
Omar, thank you very much. PPP, the initial name, that is the Protectorate People's Party. According to Kairaba, that name was not pleasing to the Banjulians because it was a kind of a political segregation. Let's reflect on the Muslim Congress Party as well. It also could be the same thing. But the PPP, the Protectorate People's Party, their intention was to target the people of the Protectorate. And because they are from Protectorate, they want to be recognized. Because another point there is many believe that the Sadao, the first president, formed the PPP. Because sometimes when you look at the literature point of view, you realize that no, he was invited to PPP to lead. So I think that's important that we put across. Pasanjali and others did great to do the mobilization. And
he was the first president.
He was the first president. And we made to understand that from Kairava's book that Serif Sise was approached, and then he was the man who referred them to Sadauda. Then it's called Dauda Kairava Jawar, was referred to Dauda Kairava Jawar. And then what makes the PPP very fast in terms of its growth was they put up a very good structures from the divisional level, because at that time it was divisions, divisional level to district level to village level. They have structures in all these areas. And then these structures, what they were saying was, kamfangol mara. So that was a powerful information. But you can see that when PPP came in 1959, because we have to give respect to the other parties, the Democratic Congress Party, which was formed earlier before PPP. And as you mentioned, this was a statement from Gailey that the 1962 election, the other parties, they suffered a serious defeat from the PPP. So because of the strategic plan of the PPP and the targets, because when I read Gailey also mentioned another statement that is called demandinganization. Is a demandinganization at that time was a slogan that could be radical in its approach. But actually, when they won the election and Jawara became the president or the premier first, they changed that slogan to national reconciliation. So the term this Mandinkanization was not targeting Mandinkas, so it was like targeting those in the provinces. People were seen as one. So let nobody quote that to say because they want only Mandinkas there. It was not like that. It was like a slogan to target those in the provinces. And what was the statement further? The statement further was the needs of the protectorate people were not considered in terms of infrastructures. We are not there. So therefore, there is a need for us to have our own party and then we go into election. And in which that you have mentioned earlier, they were very successful in the first election.
Uh, in fact, we could have to go over and over it again, but because time and we have to look at other issues. Now, let's look at the issue of this one. Before coming there, Jawara was chosen leader. His coming changed the trajectory. Perhaps some people might say Jawara's coming to the Gambia was by faith. Since you look at all others, they might have toured the country. But Jawara's been a veterinary officer. You know, in one of his famous speeches, he says, there is no cow in the Gambia that does not know me. He also says that I have stepped my foot in every soil of the country. People might not, it might be interesting to know that Jawara also walk on barefoot, or on foot rather, from Brikama to Barajali, and others. Yes, so that will give him an idea, of how bad the country was. He doesn't make him know the rights of the country. So if somebody leading independence who understand or who have been in every corner of the country, then will have the idea of how to address the need of these people once, of course, he succeeded. And perhaps that could have helped him to press the needs for independence. And towards, of course, later on, of course, towards 1962 also, we learned that, of course, both Gaba Jahumpa and Reverend J.C. Fai joined the PPP in a form of an alliance. And now we will head to and then together, of course, in 1962, after the election, Sadara become the prime minister. Gambia have several government. The British were already talking about defense and external affairs. And then, of course, Jawara keep on pushing with the people, right? So, before going to the independence, how would you analyze Gambia's self-attainment of independence? So, Gambia attainment of self-rule to push for final independence. What role do you think Jawara play in that short period to ensure that we have independence? Within 2 years, we got independent.
After the 1961 election that you have mentioned, the P.F. Njai was chosen as the premier. And then that is why in the 1962 election, PPP has been vindicated that Sadauda should be the premier. What happened? Out of the most of the seats contested, PPP won 17 in the protectorate. They won only one seat in Banjul, and then totally they had about 18 seats compared to the 5 seats of PSNI. So that was a strong statement sent. And then also what happened, because initially Tarauda and the group were pushing, because I was made to understand from a conversation with one of my senior person that most of the British West African countries like Nigeria, Ghana, they refuse to recognize the issue of the constitutional independence of a two-third majority, and then which the Gambia respect. That was after the 65. But there was series of meetings, you're relating to your question, like the Marlborough Conference was a key turning point. Yeah, to the because after the 1962 election, PFNI and the group, they wanted to challenge the results of the 1962 election, in which they have done all what they could, but at the end of the day, the governor at that time, Governor John, and the British authorities realized that there is no way that we can nullify the results of the 1962. So the Berlin Conference was a key factor there of the discussions.
The
And
Marlborough House.
the Marlborough House.
Yes.
The Marlborough Conference. I'm sorry to say about it. The Marlborough Conference was the key, and that is why I said for that Marlborough Conference, those who attended, um, on behalf of the whole country, because we cannot sideline others. Keith Omar Mbake of Sami Kolikunda, Momodu Kadicham, who is late now, Sadauda represented on behalf of PPP, and you have PSNI on the other side and his group. They must be recognized because it was as a result of that discussion that they came out finally with a solution, an outcome of the 62 problem.
Of course, political parties, chiefs, and the like. But do we have women representation? And of course, religious leaders in Gambia's independent negotiation? It seems that for our discussion have been centered on men. Did women play any significant role towards Gambian independence?
My boss earlier, Mr. Hazum Sise, mentioned one lady in Banjul who was very instrumental. But so far, from the literature that I checked in, most especially on Gaili, I didn't see any of the women representative and the Islamic leaders. Probably they didn't capture it, or I didn't come across that literature, but I haven't seen it.
uh, some will argue or some will state it like from the Karaba that it was a very big delegation. Like you did mention, we have Sag Dauda Jawara, Karaba Jawara, of course, leading the government bench, which is allies. The like of Gaba Jahumpa, like of Reverend JC Fai, and also Sirif Musawa Sise, Sirif Mustafa Diba, and the like. Why on the opposition, of course, we have PS Njai, like of MC Cham, and others. The chief of us, like you mentioned, we are represented. Yes, religious leaders, both from the Christian domination and the Muslim domination, and of course, women groups. I think there was this study, Fatumbai or Fatujane, who did her master's at Ohio. He wrote about Yai campaigns or women groups' role in Gambia's independence. I think that's an interesting part. Personally, I don't do much reading about it, but I think it's something else that people should also do to recognize that women, of course, also did, not as gender activists, but as also contributors, did a great job in Gambia's role to independence. Perhaps Issa Dauda's wife, Lady Mahoney, also, of course, was great. He also, at least with his Aku descents, and also they also throw it for the PPP, and perhaps they play other roles in the struggle. Yes. In the conference now, negotiations we are done, and of course, both parties have their says. And then part of Jawara's mission was like, now we are having independent. And of course, one of his statements, he told the British that you cause us this problem, you make our country to be small. And afterwards, after independence now, do not abandon us. How will you analyze that statement?
Thank you very much. I think the statement, what I understand from his statement was that because we are a young nation, my understanding, he was telling them that because we are a young nation, that means newly about to get our independence, then we need your support. And that is why you can see that after the independence, we were supported, according to Kairaba, the Banjul Airport Road project was a loan that they took from the donors. So the statement was trying to, give a kind of a challenge to the British to continue to stand by us and support us where necessary in our development endeavors.
Now let's look at after independence. But before that, I think the SOS for the colonists, Sunkan Sandy, do remind the Gambia's diverse attendees that here you might be politically different, religiously different, with numerous ethnic groups. But for you to continue as a viable nation, you must be united. You must do it with social harmony. Embrace diversity and push for unity. That's the only way you can survive as an independent. Is not only having freedom, but means a lot. Was that the right statement? And again, was the political dimension of the country working on that goodwill advices?
Thank you very much. Because your question related to after the independence. After the independence, we have most of the small parties disappear. Like the 1972 legislative election, we have seen that the main opposition was UP. Um, because the leadership of UP were not happy at the Marlborough conference. To them, things were not right for us to have our independence at that time, and which was not the view of Dawara and Nico. You can see that that is why after 1965, I read from a guy lead that he was his executive where they proposed a meeting with the president at that time. Let me say the premier at that time. But at the meeting, PSDI refused to talk, and then the executive were not happy with him, and then they replaced him with his brother who is Idinjai. Now, Idinjai replaced him, and then Idinjai later died in October in 1970 in a car crash. And then MC Cham became the assistant to Idinjai. And then later MC also joined the PPP. So we come to your question now. Uh, uh, Before your question, still with UP, because people do ask this question: what happened to UP? Where is UP? Because after independence, with me here from, we didn't see UP. So in the 1972 election, UP were seriously defeated by the PPP. The legislative election, out of 31 seats, PPP won 28, and then UP won only 3 seats. So that was the final straw on the camel's back, and they are no longer being visible. Notwithstanding, the leader, Edi Jai, was once appointed by Sadauda as a minister of, if I didn't forget, agriculture. All right. So after independence, there was a national harmony, if you say national reconciliation. And if you look at the Jawara's government, you have a host of people from other parties. Some believe that these were some of the issues that, according to that's according to people, these were some of the issues that he had a problem with Serif, because some says Serif don't want to embrace those diversities. And then, from if you look at the appointment into Jawara's government after independence, majority were Akus in those days, and these were Banjulians who did not support him, because even if you look at the results of the 1961 election and 1962, it clearly shows you that kind of present situations that you can see in the country, like somebody's where the person came from, win more votes from. Okay, so after the independence, yes, Sadauda embraced diversity, host of other, especially in the civil service. Most of the politicians are Mandinkas and all that, but if you look at the civil servant, majority were Akus. Yeah, one can say because they were among the first to embrace Western education. One can say that, even as lately as very close to 1990, yeah, you can see a lot of even education directors were Akus. Yeah, so I think Sarauda did his best to bring that national unity, and then to make sure that everyone is involved.
Thank you so very much. That's incentive. Now we talk about how did Sadauda consolidate independent. I remember from one eye-catching part of his speech on Independence Day was your independent will not make your granite, or independent will not turn your granite into diamond. And independent means hard work. And a series of other programs have been developed to ensure that Gambians realize independence. Like you said earlier on, Fangsoto, what would that mean? Put it in line some other programs, so mainly the TC2 and other programs we are put on. Can you tell us more on those things and how we are those programs developed to consolidate our independence or to make our independence meaningful?
All right. Thank you very much. Omar, most of the time, people will tell you that, Gambia independent man nafaso. People like saying that. Until Hanima independent. People will tell you Hanima independent. People will say independent man nafaso. I'm not sure they have a point here. We have to recognize the effort of those who fought for our independence. You see, I'm going to give an example, and I'll put this example in Mandinka. Mobe kala fi ye kordaso. Lo nie kordaso de ka kontane. Na korda, e ka kontane. Sa nie kordaso already. Ila korda kono nin konton man tabiye. Ila mol man konton. Aman soto. Womu challenge let in your compound. But that doesn't defeat the purpose of having a compound. It avono lo konta la korda kono bi konton man tabiye. Wala antina manya na korda soto. No. So for independent also, we have to understand it that way. We got our independent, yes, and with the intention of making life better for Gambians. All right. Now, if that is not attainable as how we wish, then we will see that as a challenge. But that doesn't defeat the purpose of independence. And if you look at the word during Tacito, Tacito, was a slogan used to encourage people to go and work. And this has been supported by the effort of the government. For example, there was a project here called RDP, Rural Development Project. And this RDP was giving seeders, harrowers, animals like bull, donkey carts to farmers so that to improve their production and productivity. And we have seen that our groundnut production level at that time was very high. So it was supported. The Tacito agenda was supported by the government. Fertilizer also will be given to farmers. Seeds also will be given to farmers before the rainy season. And there were a host of mixed farming centers across in the country. And these mixed farming centers, during the dry season, they will engage farmers, help them to train their animals, and then teach them new techniques of farming. So the Tacito idea was supported by the government. But for example, after all that, if people decided not to go to farm, then that doesn't defeat the purpose of our independence. Then the word Tacito was supported by the government, as far as I know. Because I know some families, let me talk about myself, in our village, we got a cow from this RDP project, Rural Development Project. And then it now, after so many years now, I think we're still benefiting from that. So the Tacito was so meaningful to the Gambia's quest for prevention of hunger and other difficulties.
Yes, thank you so much. We have been having a long discussion, and perhaps we are at the tail end of the program. And then, of course, before we go, we just let's have a couple of questions. And again, you look at the tester program. It was not only instrumental in agriculture, but perhaps in education and in health. How do you think it have contributed to education?
Well, if you look at the after independence, we were not having many schools, and those are some of the criticisms that people levied to the PPP government. Schools were not as many as what we have today. Going to school was a challenge at that time. Challenge in a sense that you have to walk for a long distance to get to a school. That was a criticism that we levied, or people levied on the PPP government. Notwithstanding, Other institutions also were in existence, like the Gambia College, the MDI, the RDI, the CHNs were all around, training Gambians on various areas. So they were, to me, there was no university, which we have to criticize them for.
Okay. But we are communities building their own schools then through this project.
Well, the Testo project was not actually a community building school. What I remember and what I was told by people, like you will be given school. For example, I went to Jara Kanikunda Primary School. People call it Tenkaran School before we were enrolled. Okay, Tenkaran School, it doesn't actually mean the government built that one. That's a community initiative. We will give you a school, but you have to start it with this. All right, you first put up a Tenkaran and then a classroom, Tenkaran classroom that students will
But
go
I think
in.
that will also translate to Tesito because you have
That also is good. It's a
Yeah,
tacito. It's a
exactly.
tacito. Yeah, that's it. It's a tacito.
Exactly my point.
It's a tacito. Yeah, and then from there, the bigger structures were gradually built, and then there was no longer Tenkaran for people to learn in. But even as late as after 2002, you still go to some communities, and then you have that
2021.
kind of 20. Anyway, I will not say 20.
2021, I was asked football, and then we have a classroom made of that.
Okay, yeah. So the Tesito was also helping people to do their community owned initiative of development project, like farato silol thing. Na le fa ala farato silol de da then ibe mano di la nin flol. You understand? But al fong le ba do. You mean I mano di la nin fong. So we can consider all those as a Tesito. And I think Tesito has a Gambian also sundi do ko kan defana. Yes.
Yes, I think that, of course, become an important point. Tesito, people have to understand that we also have to play a part in our own development, not waiting for the central government to do everything, but each and everyone, can play a part. Now, look at it from this perspective. From our traditional perspective, in this society, everybody play a quarter in societal progress. If that understanding, which I believe is the central theme of the Tesito, is translated and internalized by every individual, then people can be doing things, And now the individual or communal effort, when it's now accumulated or amalgamated with governmental effort, then we can have easy progress. And Mr. Fofana, of course, have been our guest and have been very, very instrumental, of course, in giving historical perspective. And the final question now, Mr. Fofana, Wednesday, 18th February, will mark the 60, will be the 61st year, since Gambia got independent. Though Gambia will become 61 years old. To you, is the issue of independence actualized, or still we have a long way to go from a historical perspective?
Omar. The attainment of independence cannot be defeated by the current circumstances in the country. I think if we do that, we'll be very unfair to those who have sacrificed their work, probably their energy, their resources to the attainment of independence. You see, they like Independence Day, their families should be visited and then give them a coverage to talk about their grandparents' experience of the independence struggle. And they have a history. It's not everything is written in the books. Some of the information that they have, they are not written in the books. If today, if you travel to Same Kolikunda to meet the families of Kif Omar Mbake, um, from some people who believe that he was the first qualified teacher here in 1940. And he was also a minister without a portfolio, and then did some some works, inauguration of the Buruman Bridge, and also the first generator at Basse. He has been going with the president, but who knows about him? So days like today is a day of celebration and also a reflection to appreciate what they have done But we cannot, because of the current realities, we cannot just downplay their efforts. No. We have Momodu Ijalo also. Where is he? He may not be alive, that's true. But you may have his family still there. How would they feel if you go and interview them? They may have a story. They may even have a record material that is still not in the archive. It's with them. So we have to go to these people. PS Njai, still the families are there. Reference JFC5, the families are still in Banjul. And even, let's look at some of the government places and the structures. Could be named after them. In Central River region, if you have a government structures there that is named after Akif Omar Bake, how would they feel? Ownership. But if you name it after somebody from Komboya, you think they would accept it? They wouldn't accept it because sometimes we have to appreciate some, but it all boils down to how people view the attainment of independence. Because when you link independence to economic freedom, I think yes, to me they are two different things. Because of your economic realities, you cannot defeat the purpose of internal independence. So it's important that let's recognize those who fought for our independence. To me, I think that's very, very important. These people must be recognized, and Independence Day, they must be visited, interviewed, and probably they will give us some information about the past. But Omar, do you know that even because we are all teaching, sometimes some students will ask you certain things in class, you wonder where did they get that from? It's completely out of context and out of the realities. How, where, who told them that? Because the information is not flowed as it should be. So I thank Kwong TV for this build up to independence. The little that we have said, there are a lot that we didn't know. So if they invite others also and talk to them, then we will also learn more. And then thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Bakeba Fofana. Perhaps talks of independence cannot be a one-day talk. Talk less of an hour. Also, you pick the more you say, the more you leave behind. This is why, of course, every year we have to talk about it and bring things on the perspective. Yes, and your own assassin will match with the words of Professor Mama Keboja, a profound lecturer at the University of the Gambia, who says that history and political science are different. He says historians talk on facts, not on opinions. And of course, EH Kadu will tell you, facts, opinions are cheap and facts are rare. So the history will talk on facts. And of course, that's what you have just instituted. Of course, we have independent and that have been meaningful. Things that we are on thought for is where we are now. Now the others, like you said, having your house now, having a compound, building a house is of course great achievement. That cannot be downplayed. Putting food on your boils now have to become a struggle that you have to live with. And I think this have been communicated with our leader at Independent. That was why Jawara told them that Independent will not turn our ground to diamond, but we have to work hard. Viewers, this is all we have for you this week. Perhaps this is a community-based TV that have been running programs on issue of national development. And of course, as such, any form of support will be highly valued. Of the institutions that are in the country, in one way or the other, that you can empower this station or even this program so that it can be a weekly program, it will be highly accepted. Gambia turns 61 years on Wednesday, 18 February 2026. Gambians, we have to remember this thing. Borrowing the word of Paibu Wage in trying to form a song on independence where he said Gambia liggéey jot na Gambia moom na boppam. He says that moom sa bopp nit di la gàddu boobu gàcci la. Moom sa bopp gàddu sa boppa jar na liggéeyal BD. So therefore, since we say independent, those pointing fingers at the government, yes, of course, you have right. But also, you doing a little thing to make a living also counts. Let's all work together as enshrined in our national anthem for the Gambia, our homeland. We strive and work and pray. If we live on those words and again have in our mind national pledge and see ourselves as one, irrespective of our political orientation, our religious affiliation, or our ethnic consciousness, and put all those things aside, then of course Gambia can be great. And it is only out of unity and social harmony that we can grow together. And we must remember that division does not work for anyone. It's going to be a problem. A problem in Banjul is a problem in Basse. A problem in Kwanku is a problem in Kantora. Until and unless we realize these things, then that will be the time we can make Gambia great. We thank you so very much. I was your host, Omar S. Drame. Until we come your way again.